So I think we could start with the introductions so far. And I would just like to welcome Andrew. Andrew is part of our team. He's a good friend. He's a wise advisor, and he's got a real passion for working with people. And so he runs our CCA, which is our cybersecurity certification course with the IABA. And today we're going to just show you a little bit more about cybersecurity, because I think it's a little bit of a, it's kind of, well, what is this? We know it's happening around us, but we're not quite sure exactly what is going on, in the world, or what the future holds, or how it all works. So welcome, Andrew. It's lovely having you here. And can you tell us a little bit more about what we're going to be talking about today?
Yeah, well, sure. I guess, well, obviously the topic is what should BAs know about cybersecurity, and basically we're going to look at well, why is cybersecurity important, and how do you add security requirements, and then we're going to look at different types of attacks and the associated threats and vulnerabilities, and then we're going to look at the CCA certification program and how that works. So what's included in the CCA certification course, and how does the material support your goal, and learning more about cybersecurity analysis and getting certified.
And I think one of the things that I know that you've done is you've actually used a farming scenario in your training. And the reason for that is because it's not just happening in governments or in places randomly, it's everywhere, because we're all using technology to, to do our jobs and to, yeah. Okay, great. There we go. Talking points.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll leave it to you.
Yeah. So I guess, just hacking to the point you've just made there, Deirdre. Cybersecurity is really something that impacts a lot of different organizations. So organizations that don't necessarily think of themselves as technology companies. So for instance, if you look at some of the recent examples in the US, we had a major cybersecurity incident which impacted a pipeline company delivering fuel to the eastern seaboard of the United States. Now that's a company that probably didn't necessarily identify themselves as being a technology company or an IT company, and yet, cybersecurity is suddenly something that they really need to start taking seriously. So yeah, so just reiterating what the talking points are. So why do BAs need to know about cybersecurity? How do you add security requirements, and what are the key types of attacks? And what does the CCA certification course offer? All right. So, yeah. So why do BAs need to know about cybersecurity? I've already talked about the pipeline example, but there are a couple of other examples there on the screen. One that's particularly relevant to us in New Zealand right now. So currently in Hamilton, which is sort of like a pretty major city in New Zealand, the district hospital, which a large population relies on, has been really badly impacted by a ransomware attack, and it's had real impacts on their ability to deliver service to patients here in New Zealand, particularly sort of like all of the interrelated systems such as medical scanners, and making sure that the information that they produce is delivered to doctors. So all that has been really badly impacted and disabled by a ransomware attack. And then if you look at the US, even the US federal government, so like last year, a huge number of different agencies in the US were exposed to a cybersecurity breach, whereby lots of access was gained to different government servers and the information stored upon them, including things like the National Energy Agency, which is the department with responsibility for managing the US's nuclear weapons, for example. Yeah, so clearly, cyber breaches have real-world health and security impacts for millions of people worldwide every year, and it's only getting worse. So I mean, we have a real, I say confluence of different factors, which are both increasing the breadth and scope of cybersecurity attacks, and also, I guess, changing the motivations of the attackers. So, one of the big drivers of the increase in cybersecurity incidents worldwide recently has been the increasingly, sort of use and availability of things like cryptocurrencies, which have made it much easier for hackers and adversarial threat agents to realize benefits from their attacks by receiving payments which are largely untraceable. Although this week there's been an example of the US actually being able to recover some money that was paid to the agents behind the pipeline attack. But yes, criminals it's much easier for criminals now to get paid, for their ransomware attacks. So yeah, so this is a real sort of confluence of different factors which are driving the increased sort of like frequency of and severity of cybersecurity attacks. You don't even need to be a particularly skilled hacker in order to perpetrate an attack these days. I mean, there are kits that hackers purchase, which give them access to pre-written tools and pre-written code. And all of these things are making it easier for different groups and different actors to get involved in your business in ways that are not good for you. So yeah, so there's no avoiding it. And I mean, I think more and more organizations are coming to the realization that cybersecurity has to be a critical part of their business model moving forward. And as a BA working in tech sector, or even just a sector which doesn't necessarily think of itself as a tech sector, but which uses tech, then you are going to need to know about cybersecurity. All right. So any questions about that, I guess? All right. So moving on. So how do you add security requirements? And I guess the key point there is right at the top of the screen. And the answer will vary from organization to organization. So there are standards that can help you, and I've listed NIST and OWASP there, but there are lots of different regional standards as well. I guess one of the key points that I want to make here is that you can't just treat a standard as a drag and drop solution to understanding what your security requirements need to be. These standards are very highly customizable, and they need to be tailored to meet the needs of your particular organization. And those needs don't just include your IT needs, but you also need to really take account of what your operational needs are and get input from all sorts of different stakeholders when you're tailoring these standards or applying these standards to your organization. So they're a starting point. They help you ask some great questions, and as a BA, if you're trying to advocate for cybersecurity, being able to point to a standard and say, well, this is the NIST guideline here, and this is what we should be doing, and these are the questions that we should be asking. And if we don't have good answers to these questions, then we can't really claim compliance to this standard. And I believe it is a business objective for us to be able to claim compliance to the standard. So you can use that to help you to get some traction, in various different areas. So I guess the other key point to reinforce here is that some organizations that I have worked with, although hopefully this is getting less frequent, they have defined a section in their requirements called security requirements. And they've written things in there like, the product must be designed to be secure. Okay, there it is in black and white. Security requirements, done. Okay. And yeah, I mean, this has very predictable results. People look at those requirements, and I should use air quotes when I'm talking about the word requirement there. And they don't know what to do with it. And because they're not building security thinking into their design process, then they're treating, you know, sort of like security as a bolt-on. And I've definitely worked for organizations where that's the case. And it's a huge mistake. You can't bolt, well, you can try, but you're not going to be successful if you're treating security as a bolt-on. And you know, certainly you're not going to design for security as a result of one line written in a requirements document. You really have to build it into your process. You have to build it into your thinking. You have to build it into your culture, and that's the way that you get security requirements implemented. So, you know, I take the position that every requirement is a security requirement. Okay, so every requirement needs to think about and consider security and what are the security implications of implementing this requirement, and how do we make this requirement actually real and realizable in our working environment. So yeah, to sum up again, highly customizable, but really I think security needs to be a mindset and a practice. And from that, you know, you will design really good security requirements, and you will be able to get those implemented rather than deprioritized and descoped, which is a thing that can happen. All right. So, what are the key types of attacks? So, the first thing I think we need to do is understand what constitutes an attack, and there are lots of different ways of describing it. But basically, an attack has two main components, which is, I guess, a threat and a vulnerability. Now, threats come in two main types, which are adversarial threats and non-adversarial threats. Most people, when they think about security, they're thinking about protecting themselves from adversarial threats, which are threats, you know, that are realized as a result of somebody who has malicious intent. But there are non-adversarial threats as well, such as threats which are caused by people who make a mistake, or say, for example, lose a device or accidentally disclose their password. So these are all threats. And threats turn into incidents when they're coupled up with a vulnerability. So when you're looking at a threat and you're looking at deciding which threats are important, you need to look at whether or not a potential threat agent actually has the intent to launch an attack, whether or not they have the capability to attack, and whether or not they intend to target your organization or organizations like you. Because, you know, sometimes, you know, attacks come because, you know, are directed at a group of different organizations. Yeah. And when people launch an attack against you, they're going to be looking for a vulnerability in your tools, technologies, or your people, or your processes. And they're going to exploit that vulnerability to do you some sort of damage. Okay, so according to Google, the most common different types of attack this year are malware, phishing, man-in-the-middle attacks, denial of service attacks, SQL injection, zero-day exploits, and password attacks, and cross-site scripting. I mean, this list, you know, will change slightly every year, but these are, you know, broad classes of different attacks. And, you know, for example, I mean, if you're looking at the Waikato Hospital incident, I haven't seen a definitive description of how that actually was realized, but I guess the main avenue of attack appears to have been a phishing email that was clicked on, and some ransomware was installed on the site.
Can you explain a little bit around what you mean by that?
Sure.
Because there's lots of acronyms, but I'm not quite sure, or, you know, names.
So for instance, a phishing email will be an email that arrives in your inbox. It will look innocent. So it might be something like, I don't know, a meeting invitation or something like that. It generally comes from somebody that you expect to get an email from. And I guess the phishing attacks have got much more skilled and harder to detect. I mean, it used to be that you would receive a random email from somebody, and there might be grammatical mistakes in the email, and the language would be very unfamiliar to you. And it would be relatively easy to look at that email and go, well, I'm not going to click on that. But emails are attackers have got more and more sophisticated with their phishing scams, and so, I mean, for every couple of months, there will be a news story here in New Zealand which says, "Hey, there's a phishing attack going around," and there'll be an announcement from a bank like ASB or something like that saying, "If you receive an email that purports to be from us." Even though it might have our company logo in there, it might include a link to a website which looks like it's an ASB website. We will never ask you to do these particular things, which is like, update your password via email, or give us your account details, things like that. So yeah, people launching phishing attacks have got a lot more sophisticated over the years, and they target particular communities. And they target their attacks a lot more at different people. So a man-in-the-middle attack would be somebody intercepting your communications, either with a Wi-Fi scanner or something like that. Denial of service attacks is where people will take down a website by hitting it with thousands and thousands and thousands of requests for information, or web page views. And you can find pretty good definitions for all of these attacks in our cybersecurity glossary. But yeah, okay. So, and yeah, okay. So from here, given that I just referred to the cybersecurity glossary, it's part of our CCA certification course materials, and this is basically what the course covers. So the course is split into 9 different modules. We start off with an introduction to cybersecurity analysis, which is really just talking about basic concepts like, what is your role as a BA? How does it fit into the IT functions? How does governance work around security, and what are some of the basic security concepts? And then enterprise security concepts, which is all about sort of like accountability and sort of like enterprise risk management and things like that. And then we move on to some more of the risks and controls, looking at securing the layers, so physical security, endpoint security, things like that. And then data security, looking at things like data in transit, data in use, data at rest. User access control, so authorization, authentication, and the like. And then just look at some of the different solution delivery models, and then some of the impacts on operations. So yeah, so that's the brief idea of what's covered in the course. Obviously, there's a lot more different topics below those broad headings. But you can see from here what the course tries to do is to give you a conceptual framework, and then look at how that framework is applied in different ways and at different layers of your organization. So, for instance, we go right from, well, how does cybersecurity work at the enterprise level, right down to what are the implications when we're looking at security for databases or different applications that we're delivering. Because obviously, as a BA, you're going to be working throughout all those different layers, and you're going to have to change your perspectives and you change your hats depending on which part of the organization you're dealing with and what the needs of your stakeholders are. So the course has to try and cover a really broad range of material. So necessarily, some of it's high level. Really, what it's trying to do is to, I guess, identify the tools and the knowledge that you need to have, and give you a starting point, give you a sort of like a common frame of reference that you can use when you're talking to other BAs. and then obviously, sort of like try and give you the flexibility that you need to be able to, change those, wear those different hats and change those different perspectives and work with the different people that you're going to need to work with when you want to be successful in implementing cybersecurity in your organization. And obviously, you're going to be working with a lot of different people. You need to understand what their concerns are, what their role is, and of course we'll go into all of that as well.
So there's a lot of terms and definitions and that in,
Yep.
Not only the course, but in the certification.
Mm-hmm.
So can you tell us a little bit about the exam? So what
Sure.
was the exam like, and what kind of questions do you get asked in those exams?
Yeah. So, okay. I guess Deirdre's probably already hinted there is an awful lot of terms you're going to need to be familiar with. And there's a massive list of terms for most of these modules, okay? And some of the terms have 3 or 4 different definitions. So you're going to need to be familiar with all of them. So, so the exam structure is a multi-choice exam. 75 questions was my exam. So you get 90 minutes to do it. I got through it in about 45 minutes when I did it, which was pretty good. But yeah, I mean, so you do have time to answer the questions. A lot of the questions are focused on terminology. So you will need to spend some time working through our glossary and familiarizing yourself with all of the different terms. There are, for each of these modules, there are a range of different subsections. Each of the subsections have got some what are called use cases associated with them. I have to say that the use of the term use case in relation to this course is not going to match your expectations as BAs, and that many of the use cases are not actually use cases. But I think that's another area where you need to be really familiar with what the course says, because those use cases will come up quite a bit in your exams.
It's quite interesting because the IRBA uses this terminology, which you have to kind of train. But just be aware that sometimes when we use certain terminology like use cases, it's not because it's the words we've chosen. And as you said to them, it's because it's what the IRB has chosen to use as reference in that material.
Yeah. I think the IABA developed this course material in conjunction with IEEE, and a lot of the more technical material has probably come from the IEEE, and they haven't really played nicely with terms like use cases. So expect a bit of use case abuse when you're looking at the material. Yeah, I mean, I certainly, I raised my eyebrows a couple of times when I saw what had been defined as a use case. But yeah, so I mean, so other things that will be included in the material are descriptions of the different sorts of controls. So you can see from here we've got a whole module, cybersecurity risks and controls. But controls are described at virtually every point throughout the material. So each of these modules will have a section associated with them with different sorts of controls. So technology controls and process controls that you can introduce at different levels. Yep.
There's a question, Andrew, from Rose. Does the test have any technical questions? So I'm not exactly sure what technical questions, but I'd say yes, but I think you should maybe answer that question more specifically.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, in terms of the sorts of technical questions that you might get, so that list of attacks that I had up. So what you might see in the test is sort of like a man in the middle attack is, and then a list of different descriptions of what a man in the middle attack might be. and then obviously, it's multi-choice. So you select one answer. You might get asked some questions about different types of firewalls or the roles of different servers, that sort of thing. So some of that is included in this module 5, securing the layers module. There's quite a bit in there. So I think module 5 is probably one of the more technical modules. Also, technical questions around data security. So what are the different sorts of encryptions, encryption schemes, and how do they work? So how does a public key work, and how does a private key work, and how do security certificates work? So you need to understand that, and that is covered in the source material. It's also covered quite a bit in our resource library. So what we've done is we've gone off on where we think some additional perspectives on some of the topics covered by the course is useful. We've gathered some resources which are available to help support your learning. So yes, there is technical information in the course. Really, I think they've actually done a reasonable job of pitching it at a level which is useful, but not horrifying. So hopefully that answers your question, Rose.
All right, so here's another question from Paul. Is the question maybe more related to technical, as how do we compare SQL to counter an attack? Sorry,
it doesn't go into that level. Okay, so what it will do is it will identify an attack type as SQL injection. It will give you a description of what that is, but it doesn't give you really examples of this is SQL that you need to watch out for.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I suppose that links to Rose's question as well. So although the term is a technical term, so the name, like, it might be a phishing attack, they're not expected to know how that phishing is created or how that attack. So they ask you a technical term, I suppose is the better word, and then you have to describe that technical term in the exam.
So nobody's going to be able to expect you to be able to set up a firewall as a result of doing this course. You are going to know what the role of different types of firewalls are, and you're probably going to be aware of some of the issues and trade-offs involved in configuring firewalls, but you're not going to be expected to be able to do it.
And then the next question is, does the certificate compare to the CompTIA Security Plus certification, which I think is the relationship that the IABA's had? Is that correct?
Yeah. So I guess I'm going a little bit from memory here. I believe that it's been developed out of that certification. I'm not sure whether or not that other certification is still available or not. But I think what we should do is look at this as the IABA's offering, and it's been developed in conjunction with the people behind the Comp certification.
So typically what they've done now, and IABA do this with a couple of training partners, is they've said, okay, if the BA is a key component in doing, let's say, the requirements, then we'll bring in another company to develop the practice. And so they have worked together to develop the materials or the exam, let's say, from a BA perspective.
Yeah.
I don't see any other questions, but yes, I think a key area in this particular course was making sure that we have a library of resources, because everything that's mentioned in terms of, if you're talking about man in the middle, phishing, or any of those things, you will find a short video somewhere in our library about that, because although you're not meant to know how to do it, you do need to know it exists. It is something that might occur.
Yeah, and I
So
think the thing,
sorry, carry on.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think the thing about the resource library is that some of the material that we've gathered does go into reasonable depth, that it certainly refers you to other material as well, that you can explore further. So really, you can go as deep as you want.
Yeah.
I mean, I got really interested in some of the encryption and encryption schemes, and so I wasted a lot of time looking at that when I was material. So
Well, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't be sure if it was a waste, really.
mm,
I'll share a screen in a minute just to show that library, just to show the depth of the information. But as Andrea said, it really is the terms and the definitions you need to focus on in terms of learning. So do you believe the CCA training material would suffice for the test, or would you need external material?
yeah, I mean, I looked at external material, and I guess partially I did that because I was curating a resource library. So okay, so if you look at the CCA material, I believe it is sufficient for the test. I went beyond it because I didn't want to just memorize stuff. I also wanted to have a framework of understanding, and for me, looking at information from multiple different sources helped to do that. Yeah, so I mean, I think the CCA material is probably sufficient to get you through the exam, but I would look at the resource library and some of the material there as well. Yeah, so that's
You'll
my
see I've just swapped out the screen. So as you were saying, Andrew, so I'm not trying to to stop any of, but one of the key things, because this really is about definitions and understanding the terms, etc., we've worked really hard to have a video almost about everything. So as you can see, there's massive amounts of information. And the reason why it's in a separate place to the training is because you don't have to learn all of this.
Yeah.
But in patrolling the internet and trying to go, oh, what is this? You can now go through your resource library and find that. So the idea was we wanted a one-stop shop. We didn't want, and this is where Andrew's been really good. He's gone into a good amount of detail and then giving you the right amount of detail to help you understand the fundamentals, what you need in terms of your exam, but then also keep enhancing your learning through looking at library, etc. Is that a fair
Yeah,
statement?
yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, the thing is with the exam is that it focuses on the material that's being provided, and if you look at the presentations and I guess the material that we're presenting as the main part of the course, we target the exam. I mean, that's what we claim to do. That's what we do. The resource library will take you further and will provide you with a deeper and richer understanding. And I mean, but obviously it will take you more time. But I think it's time worth investing.
Yeah. So when you go on the course, you're being set up for success in your exam. And when you look at the library, you are gaining perspective that you could apply further in your role. I think that basically sums it up.
Yeah, no, that's a good summary.
Okay, should I share the screen back with you?
Yeah, I think we're more or less at the questions stage. So
Okay.
right,
So any other questions from anyone? I'm just gonna go in. Let me just stop the share somewhere here.
I really like the splash screen with the combination of the agribusiness and the technology. So
do I. All right. So if there are no more questions, we could probably end a little bit earlier.
Yep.
Okay. So for those who want to know a little bit more around the course, you get the first chapter, you can have a look at it free. There's no cost involved. You can try it out. You've met Paul, you've met Andrew. I'm reading Paul's note here. You've met Andrew, so you know who he is, and certainly he's been very, very great trainer and helpful for people doing assignments and how they're working. So if there's any questions, we will seek to answer that now, or we'll call it a day, which is only starting.
Yes, for us in New Zealand, yes.
Yes. You're welcome, Daniel. So Daniel says thanks.
Yeah.
Right, so please feel free to go to our website and you'll be able to use the first chapter. As you can see, there's about 9 chapters. You'll be able to see that free. And yes, hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And so is the training basically online and starting? The training is available now.
Yeah.
And yes, it is online. And Andrew takes everybody through you. So in each chapter, you'll have an assignment. And Andrew, you can explain it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, so Deirdre's right. So for each chapter there is an assignment, and the assignment is it's trying to reflect, you know, sort of like the material that you're likely to be asked in the exam, but in a way that encourages you to look at sort of like a wide range of material when you answer the question. So yeah, so you submit your assignments, and I will look at your assignments, and I will give you feedback on your on your assignments. Yeah, so I mean, I really like it to interact with people, and the assignments is one way that I can do that. And yeah, I mean, I'll take the time to look at your assignment and give you feedback if you take the time to write it. So yeah.
Awesome. Yes, Andrew's really good at his assignments. He gives quite a good, well thought set of feedback for every single individual, so works live with everyone. So that's really great.
Actually, it's a little bit of a rod, considering that I'm going to get 9 assignments from every student. So.
I know. You built your own rod. All right. Thank you, everybody. I think we'll end it there. It's been great, and thank you, Andrew, for really giving us the time. There's a lot of thanks coming through from the chat box, and we'll see you soon.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And look, it's been great to have the opportunity to talk to you all. So, yeah.
Cheerio.
Okay.